Pronounce it again.
Beauchamp.
Sound sync, play please, and...
Well, hello again, everyone. Here for a new episode of Pile of Scrap, and I think this might be one of the most interesting episodes of Pile of Scrap because I'm not talking with my traditional recyclers. I'm talking to Mark and Kristen Beauchamp. Boy, but if you look at that card, it should be Beauchamp, but it's Beauchamp. Welcome. Now, your guys' story, and because see, Pile of Scrap, I'm in the recycling industry, obviously, and you guys were in the used textbook, you're in the used textbook business, but got into recycling paper because...
We had a lot of books that weren't going to
No
make
home.
it. Yeah, no home, no value, and then or too damaged to be of any value.
So where did you learn to recycle?
Wasn't it on his podcast? Wasn't that one of the ideas?
Well, yeah.
Well, that's the point here.
Yeah.
All right, so that's
Yeah.
the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here in St. Louis, Missouri with Leonard Zeid.
Pleasure to see you, John. Thanks for coming.
There's a big piece of our puzzle missing, and that's the topic of paper. And since you're the president of the PSI chapter, you're the perfect guy.
Well, Paper Stock Industries is obviously promoting paper and recycled paper and everything about recycled paper. So I'm happy here to talk to you and answer any questions you might have.
That was so cool to me to say, well, somebody's not in the industry actually, first of all, listened to the podcast and took something from it. And it's now doing something, and we'll get to some of the stuff you're doing. So that, to me, that's pretty cool. Okay, all right, somebody outside
cool.
the recycling industry,
It's super
but now
awesome.
you're in it. So help me out. Give us your history here.
When we first got married, Mark and I had a used bookstore called Ball and Cross Books. The name came from G.K. Chesterton, and we did that for a number of years with our kids. But the small little coffee shop bookstore was not going to cover as our family continued to grow. And then there was the economic downturn of 2009.
Yeah,
and
I remember that well. In the recycling industry, it was brutal.
It was brutal. And then all the bookstores that we had loved and would love to go and visit to, and we're like, oh, maybe one day we'll have a bookstore like that. And they were all shutting down and closing their doors, and we're like, oh, man. So anyway, as Mark was kind of making an exit from a job, you found a big, huge pallet full of damaged textbooks.
Yep.
And so Mark's genius has always been books. It's like super niche. And so when we had the opportunity to go in, we just went for it. Big, huge banana boxes, dirty books, mold, dusty, gross, in the living room with the kids. And then we would put them in a storage unit. And then when they sold, we'd bring them back to the kitchen table and fix them and then package them and ship them and drop them off.
And getting books from where? All over?
The same one company. That was a local textbook company that had gotten a good deal buying kind of the rejects from a company that were probably too damaged to rent, but there was kind of a good chance you could find one or two out of the pile that didn't really have a problem or moderate problems, enough so you could just take the whole pallet, pitch the ones that are really beat up, keep the ones that are kind of sort of beat up, sell those online, sell them as damaged, but you could sell them easily without having to do any work. And what they were doing is they were buying 20, 40 pallets at a time of books that they knew were damaged, but they were only keeping the ones that were like easy fixes or they didn't have to do anything with them. And so then we took the books that were too damaged for them to use, we took their trash, and whenever they called us up and said, hey, we got more trash, I'd just go pick it up and throw it into the storage unit.
And what were you going to do with that? You were picking it up for
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
For what purpose?
That was
you
my
just don't go,
question.
hey, I'm going to pick up your books. Well, for what purpose? What was your idea?
When I saw them, I saw that they were damaged, but if they were fixed, they'd have value.
So you knew you can recondition them and get them back out there.
I knew if I could do it. I didn't know that I could.
Okay, you didn't. All right, the big IF. All right.
Yeah, if I could fix it, then it'd be worth something. So the motivation is figure out how to fix the thing.
Okay.
Right, fix the book.
Now, did you figure out that first before you started taking the books?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, well, if I put a piece of tape here and a piece of tape here, that seems to hold together pretty good. And then books that's damaged like this, I can't fix that. So that has to get tossed back into recycling. And that idea of like, okay, I can fix some, I can identify the ones that I can fix pretty easily. I'll put those onto Amazon. When I sell them, I'll fix them and ship them.
And so we just started building inventory, but all the books were free.
Right.
So we weren't having any overhead, and we were starting to make like $1,000 a week. And we were like, oh, this kind of could
Make some money doing this.
We should make a little money doing this. And then as it kind of built and built, we just graduated to the next storage unit.
Yep.
And finally I'm like, okay, we need an office. I applied for an Amazon account, and we had to pick a name. Like it was
In
just
15 minutes.
in like a few minutes, and so.
Yeah, but there's only one L in Bulrush.
I know, because
Yes.
it's actually based on a bulrush basket, and a bulrush basket is what Moses was placed on when his mom put him into the water in Egypt, because
Biblical. We're
Yes.
back to biblical
We're back-
times.
we are.
Fantastic.
And so it was like really like cast
See,
your
I
foot
learned
upon the
something.
water. Yeah. But Bulrush Books actually was taken, and so we turned it into a verb, and it became Bulrushed Books.
Okay.
Yep.
But it also gives sort of a connotation of fast shipping and powerful, and we were great with those connotations, and so we went for it, and we haven't looked back.
So are these all college textbooks?
Yeah, these are all college textbooks.
Yeah, like 95%, 90% of them.
Talking before we started this podcast, Kristen, you really have your heart on. You're bringing a service to students, and tell us more about where your heart is on this, because there's really heartfelt. This isn't just money, but there's a heartfelt purpose behind this.
Right, yeah, so of course we're going to make, we're working hard, and the money has to matter. But I think for me, when I think of education, it's so outrageously expensive. Textbooks, everybody knows. Like if you have anybody about buying textbooks when they go to college, their eyes, they all gasp, like, oh. A lot of these textbooks, they're also not necessarily built to last. We won't go after the publishing houses at all, because they're our friends, but they do not build them to last. And so you'll have a textbook like this where it kind of breaks in the same spot every time.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yep.
Textbooks there's new publishing every 4 years, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so if you build the book to last 4 years,
Yep.
have you not done what you're supposed to do?
Exactly.
But they're not lasting a year, 2 years? What do you find?
They're not lasting 4 years.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. I was a college student once, okay? I didn't really maintain my books because
For sure.
when finals were over, I had more fun tossing books, burning them, and doing whatever you had to them, okay? Now you're expecting 18 to 22-year-old kids to treat this like it's fine jewelry?
No, not at all. I'd be glad to buy it back from them. But what I would do, and going back to your point, is that not everybody can afford that.
True.
There's a lot of students that go to colleges and university and community colleges that can't and do without, or try to. What are their options?
I love this story. This is really unique, and it's part of the recycled chain. And Pile of Scrap is the Recyclers podcast, and there's so many elements now of recycling that I really haven't covered. Yeah. And because when you get a book that's done to its life end, tell us what you're doing. What are you doing with the paper and all and everything?
All right.
Well, that was one of the ideas that Mark threw on the plate. Is we had a trash issue, and I was like, babe, you've got to get this, because the local recycling centers stopped accepting we were trying to recycle our textbooks that we couldn't use. And
we're recycling them whole cloth. So the whole book gets tossed to a Gaylord. Gaylord heads over to the recycling center. Recycling center calls us up one day and says, all those pallets of books you got outside your warehouse waiting for us to pick them up? We're not picking them up.
the Chinese market shut down, and we didn't know. But that was only after their forklifts and trucks didn't come for like a month and a half, 2 months. So we had 15 of these bins full of books.
Yeah.
because there's
paper values have cratered too. So.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's because of that. It's not we can't justify the expense of picking them up to
Right.
recycle them. So there we are. And
So Mark says, I think we should get a debinder. And I said, oh. I mean, in your machinery.
Right, that's
Okay,
what we do,
so-
Sierra. We sell a lot of
So
machines.
please tell me why we should spend $25,000 on a debinder. And
Well, was he right?
yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Of course he
eventually it pays itself off.
We were
So-
getting like $75 a ton. Yeah, $75 a ton. It's
not bad.
right now.
Who's buying it?
Inland Empire Paper Company, which is up north.
and they pulp it for us, and we just send it up in a truck. They pulp it for us, and then it's actually put in these huge ton rolls of paper.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's sent down to a partner we have down in Lewiston, who's turning it into notebooks and paper products for us. And
Fantastic.
so
So
Yeah.
now you got the paper, you debinded it, you take this part of the book out, and you got all
Yeah.
the different coated book paper and the, what's the other,
White,
White,
something
yeah,
like
bright.
that.
Okay, so now you've done something very unique with this because you have your own paper, the pulp. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So the idea was, okay, yeah, we could do the thing where we say, oh, we recycle our paper, but that
recycle our books.
we recycle our books, we recycle our paper. But the problem that I was running into was just like, it could be so much cooler if we could say, hey, we recycle our paper, turn it into new paper, and we bring it back in here. We've got all these people who can fix a book. Why can't we use that same skill to make a book?
See, I won't handle any of this anymore at Sierra just because the markets for it is. And baling, you can't bale this stuff. You could bale this, maybe you could bale this now, but as a book, baling it is just impossible.
Yeah. Right? Why can't
Right.
we use that same skill if we're good at fixing something, that same skill could cross over and we can make something out of it. So, where does our paper go?
It's handy to hear people in other industries talk about their problems and how they fix them, because people in your own industry don't usually talk too openly about kind of their problems or concerns, and you usually pick up on a really good idea by listening outside your discipline.
It's a commodity. Paper is a commodity. It's not waste. It's an actual commodity. So I want to get that. I want to clarify that. Scrap is not waste. And paper, some people call it waste paper. Scrap, they don't like that word, but recycled paper is not waste because it actually has a value. Now, granted, it may have a value below the cost of production. It still has a value, so we can't call it waste.
So, but it was neat when you talked to him, because that was just an insight into what downstream from us, what everybody's talking about.
I want you to tell me what's the most clever use of paper and the recycling into a new product that you have seen.
So it's kind of like getting to go inside the guts of the recycling industry. So, okay, where does our kind of paper go to, is what I started asking.
The other thing that's really come online now is when people get, they order from a company that sends them everything they need to do to cook a meal, and it comes in a box. It used to have styrofoam in it.
Okay.
There are some companies now that are starting to use a paper molded fiber product that provides the insulation they need, that holds the temperature.
And we found the pulping plant that de-inks the paper, right? And turns it into big rolls of newsprint. So I went up and visited them. I went and saw the big old shed with the big old stacks of baled paper flopping everywhere, because you can't bale paper really well.
You can bale paper beautifully. Books
Books
okay,
there
are
you
not
go.
something.
Yes.
I sell paper balers, so you can bale beautiful, old newsprint, cardboard, office pack, white computer paper, but
It's books.
books are just yes, they're not
They're
easy.
tricky. We're in books, but we're also kind of in a process, because we're fixing, we're cutting, we're not just like a bookstore.
How much of all of this ends up in the garbage?
Right now, it's
Right now, just the spines.
Just the
and
spines.
Then the covers.
And the covers and the
covers are going to the recycling center
Oh, the
in mixed paper.
Oh,
They'll
the
take them
mixed
for free, but I don't get anything for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious about the spines, what we can do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that was all books in the trash?
Yeah, well, no, I know. It's a lot of weight and it's a lot of bulk.
Right.
I'm thinking
My idea is if you could soak this in paraffin, take this part off, soak it in paraffin, could you make this into a fire starter?
Probably.
Yeah.
Continue on.
Okay, so there I am looking at, and this particular one is working with a lot of MRFs. They've got huge stacks of paper and getting to see, okay, this is how it's going to work. And I'm like, what's the end product? What does this look like? And they point me at this 2-ton roll of paper. I'm like, I can't bring a 2-ton roll of paper back into my warehouse. How am I going to, but I want to make something out of that paper.
Okay.
I want to get that paper up here, then I want to find someone who can turn that roll of paper into something else.
Okay.
And so we found a partner down in Lewiston that we're working alongside that we were able to send our paper down there, and then they're able to and willing to allow us to be creative with different products that we can make from our paper. So saddle stitch notebooks, perfect bound notebooks.
Well, here, this is a cute little, little notebook. That's some cute artistry, but that's what I've used for my notes. So you making these little
notebooks.
Yep.
And so
who figured out how to make these?
Okay, so
it's collaboration.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got your books.
And yeah.
And
You found them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had 2 weeks to come up and make 150,000 notebooks for them, and we were able to do that. And they're really happy, and they're putting another order in for 450,000 this week.
That's fantastic. I want to see more uses for paper because I'm in the paper recycling industry, and more uses creates more need for machinery. Okay, that's the selfish part about all this. But the fact of the matter is you got creative, and this is something that I absolutely love. Something here about like a mini newspaper, but it's not a newspaper. What am I looking at? Tell the people who will listen now. Of course, if people watching, they can see, but this is like an old, it's a mini newspaper.
We call it tabloid.
Tablet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Tabloid size.
Okay, tablet size. And what am I looking at here?
So it's chapter 1 of a book. So it's a book that's coming out in chapters in a serial form on a newspaper, and then it gets mailed like a newspaper. So it's showing up in your mailbox the way like a tabloid newspaper used to, but it's the first chapter of a book. And the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks out, the next chapter is going to show up.
And the author of this is N.D. Wilson, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So you, instead of going and buying the book now, he's publishing his own book through this,
Yep.
but a chapter at a time.
Yes.
Yes.
So he's probably creating a higher demand. Oh, that chapter 1 was great. When's chapter 2? When's chapter 2?
Right.
So
Yes.
creating quite a buzz. So how's it going for him?
kids love to get things in the mail, right?
I used to love getting things in the mail. Today, everything that comes in the mail costs me money. It's a bill.
Well, then we need to
fun
get you
comes in
signed
the
up.
Nothing anymore.
We need to get
Yes.
you a subscription to N.D. Wilson's book then.
Okay, so how many other authors have seen this and going to come up with it?
I think it's
Yeah.
the new thing. I think that there's
So you're going to be out
limitless.
going to the publishing house? I mean, are you going to...
Anybody, I think that that's where there's an opportunity to reimagine uses for paper, specifically in the newspaper industry, where we all have news on our phones now.
Sure.
But there are all these beautiful, gorgeous machines that make beautiful things out of paper right down the road. And newspapers have such a rich history and culture and piece of our culture.
This is really a fantastic, it's you guys are like the antique store, furniture store for books. You've created all new, how people take things and create something out of it, and
Yes.
you're doing that with books through old paper, newspaper. Let's try it. That's fantastic. This is a really fascinating thing. I mean, what a concept, from textbooks to notebooks now to mini newspapers of a real life book. Instead of buying the whole book, you're creating that anticipation. When's the new chapter going to write? So I think that's just it's a great story. I hope people that listen to or watch Pile of Scrap can be motivated by, it just isn't about big processing MRF facilities, waste facilities, that there is a niche. There's so much to this industry. And you guys have provided a really unique niche. And you know what? You might be able to find people to listen to who have a lot of books and say, hey, what if I sent you some books?
Right? Yeah.
Right.
You
Call
don't know
us.
what you're
Yeah.
doing. Textbooks now. It could grow.
Absolutely.
It could be anything. So maybe all you MRF operators out there who would listen to this, right? You got gaylords of books and a lot of textbooks, contact the Beauchamps, the Beauchamps. I want to call you a Beauchamp,
I know,
but
it's my
Beauchamp.
fault, yeah. Well, but and thank you too, though. Like you said, this is part of what you're saying, and having these podcasts and these opportunities to talk about the industry is inspiring other people. And so thank you to you, because part of this is all part of our stories are kind of knit together now.
Yes,
So
yes, they are.
I really appreciate that.
Well, Mark, Kristen, I want to thank both of you for allowing me to tour your facility. The best of luck to you. You're going to grow this thing, your success. You haven't even begun to hit your success yet. I can just see it, feel it. This is such, I mean, my marketing mind keeps going, oh, what could you do with it? But I'm sure you got plenty. You're doing great. But thank you both for hosting me here today in Moscow, Idaho. What a great little town. I love this place. I was told not to call it Moscow. It's Moscow.
Moscow.
So you're from you're Central Valley boy.
Yeah.
We're in Moscow. You know,
Moscow.
potato, right?
Yes.
So anyway, well, the two of you, thank you so much for hosting me and being part of an episode of Pile of Scrap.